Your friends, your friends. Radio friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.
All right. It is Halloween. And I think, I really don't know what to do, something special. So we figured we would talk about Halloween. All of us have been through so many different radio stations and still a lot of us trying to find work. So there's got to be some Halloween stories in here. And I know Ed Bruder has got some great stuff. But let's first go around the room and say good morning to everybody. I'm Steve Parker here in Berlin, Connecticut. Beautiful day, maybe 50, 55 right now. Good morning to Pete Salant, who's in Virginia, right, Pete?
That's right, in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And the weather here is almost exactly the same as in Connecticut. Bright, shiny skies, blue skies, and 50-something degrees.
All right, we got Chuck Kraus. Morning, Chuck.
Good morning to you. Halloween, we don't know what it is. There are no children on this block or anywhere around. Last year, I sat there for 2 hours and we got 2 kids. So we're just turning off the lights and no tricks, no treats.
We're prepared for at least 35 kids when we average about 4. So we got a lot of candy to last us a long time. Angela doesn't take any chances. Oh, Ron Pell, good morning from Cheshire.
Good morning. We had quite a bit of rain last night. I mean, it was unbelievable. And because of that, the moat around the Shire is almost overflowing, and we have alligators. Who knew?
Oh, really? They're very proper in Cheshire. Tracy Carmen from Longmeadow. Hi, Tracy.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everybody. Happy Halloween. It occurred to me I'm going to be digging around. I'm going to post online a air check from 50 years ago. Halloween 1975, Oogie Pringle doing his Halloween haunting on WNBC. I have that somewhere on the hard drives around here. I transferred years ago.
Oh, Dave Overson down in Florida.
Thank you, Steve. It's a beautiful, it's a cold day. It's about the low 60s here.
Wow.
And it's horrible. It's horrible. I got to go put another log on the fire. Excuse me, guys. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Bob Craig. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, good morning. All set to do the Monster Mash. Yes, the graveyard smash. Da, 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 da. Yeah, it's a nice day. We had 3 inches of rain here yesterday, so we had a real big soaker down here in Philly. But it's starting to clear now. It's supposed to be very, very windy, 50-mile-an-hour winds later on. So that is the update.
All right. John Landry, welcome back again.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody? It's a beautiful day outside. Waiting for the goblins to come by and
they're here now.
Say what?
There's a whole screen right here now of goblins.
Right.
Oh, there is now. Joe McCoy. There you are. Hi, Joe.
How you doing, guys? It's Halloween, and for us Italians, we eat on Halloween
Candy.
Gabagool.
Right. All right. I love it. Okay. Let's see. Bill Rock. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How you doing, Steve?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'll be doing better after Monday, but so far I'm doing okay. We're on the shores of Long Island Sound, and because we're kind of away from everything, we don't get any kids on Halloween. It hasn't been that way for like 25 years.
No, you planned it that way.
You still got to have at least 3 bags of candy just to be ready, Bill Rock. In case anybody
well, my grandkids alone can eat enough.
Ed Bruder, I got Ed back. For some reason, I had some messed up email on Ed. So thanks a lot, Ed, for joining us.
No problem. Good to see everybody here in New Hampshire. We've already had our first snow on Mount Washington. Wow. And it's unusual when that happens before Halloween. So we'll have to see how the winter plays out. But this morning, plenty of sun and lots of wind.
And Greg Simonson. Hi, good morning, Greg.
I remember in 2011, we had a Halloween blizzard.
Damn straight.
that debilitated us, up at least here in Massachusetts, Central Mass, Western Mass, for like 3 or 4 days, as I recall.
Yeah, we didn't have electricity here for a week.
Was down. Yeah,
right. Yeah. But anyhow, this Halloween, I've already got the shades drawn and the lights off and ready to sit through another Halloween in the back. And it looks like it's actually going to be a good day for it. But I'm told that even if I did come downstairs, it'd only be about 3 or 4 trick or treaters. And I think it's almost a thing of the past because, I live on a residential street now. I'm renovating a house. I'm just about done on about the street's probably got 15 houses, 2-family houses, but there's, I don't know, not a lot of kids, and they're going to go downtown to the merchants, and I just wonder whether this trick or treat thing might be on its wane.
Nah, not as long as
come here. We get thousands
to the house. God, morning, Glenn Edwards. How are you?
There we go. Good. I'm doing good today. From West Haven here, the barge capital of the world. We got a couple of barges broke loose, and they went into Milford and then came into West Haven. So it's 54 degrees, and it's not a bad day.
Nice to be down there by the water. Bob Marks, Vero Beach. Hi, Bob.
Yeah, from the sun and fun capital of Indian River County. This is where the tropics begin, although it doesn't feel really tropical this morning. This morning when I got up, it was actually, 57 degrees. A little chilly. Really? Yeah, so the kids won't be out trick-or-treating because it's likely to be in the 70s tonight. So I don't live in a neighborhood where anybody goes knocking on doors and asking for candy. It's 55 and older, and if one of them was to dress up and come over to my house, I'm going to call the police and have them arrested.
There you go.
Yep. I found out, just one Halloween of sitting there with a short dress on and fishnet stockings, they don't really come to the house that much anymore. And the guys that go by and go, it's Steve Parker, it's okay. Lee Gordon, is that a Halloween shirt you're wearing?
Absolutely. I've got my Twizzlers and my Crunch Bars, and got to dress appropriately for the holiday. And it's getting there now. It's 66 degrees and perfectly clear skies today. So it's not a bad day. It's going to get up into the 70s. And because I live in a 55 plus community, my entire 80-piece bag of candy is going to be completely unclaimed by little monsters, and that means it's all mine. I get to eat it all because here's a fun fact: no grandchildren ever go to their grandparents' house on Halloween, and so there will be no I guarantee there will be no on my night. And by the way, when we had that ice storm 14 years ago,
wow,
in 2011, I lost my power for 11 days in West Hartford.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah, a lot of Connecticut was down. Funniest part was, though, it was really embarrassing because Robinson wasn't in town, but sitting on top of Rattlesnake Mountain was the largest glowing house you've ever seen in your life. He's got a lot of power in there, and the kids were going, "Oh, this is really bad," just sitting up there like that. Oh God!
I was running my voiceover business from using an inverter from my car.
Oh wow!
I had my car parked next to my house, and an extension cord running in. Fortunately, even though I didn't have power for 11 days, the Comcast guy came on the second day. So I had internet on day 2. I just didn't have electricity until day 11.
Really useful.
All right, Pat Sheehan is with us. Pat, north, south, where are you this morning?
I'm here in beautiful Fairview, Texas, and knocking on your door as Blippy, because it seemed only appropriate. Awesome, for those of you who know Blippy. But anyway, we're here. It was 45 degrees this morning in northern Texas. We thought it was going to be a warmer southern state than our Connecticut home, but you know what? The weather travels in strange places, and especially on Halloween. I remember well that big shutdown that we had during the ice storm. Wow.
Yeah, that was a scary one, that's for sure, boy. Just walking through the neighborhood and hearing all those tree branches breaking while you were walking along. That was just amazing. Clark Smith is with us. Good morning, Clark.
Good morning, everybody. New Hampshire is partly cloudy, drying out, 58 degrees, and I'm going to go out for Unibooze for trick or drink.
Oh, there's the judge. Morning, Judge Harrigan.
Good morning. Good morning. I celebrating Halloween with my special guest, Dick Corson.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah,
well, Hal, your brain just works in mysterious and hilarious ways.
Yeah, Corson was pretty much scary 365. We can pretty well be sure on that one. Yeah. Ron, I need you to move your camera or something a little bit. We're seeing mostly your ceiling there. So there you go. That's good. Yeah, I mean, so now I have to admit that when it really came down to Halloween, Charlie Parker never lost the spirit. And we used to have, God, he always had this great mask. It was kind of like a rubber Frankenstein mask that my sister had brought back from California. And he'd wear this, black trench coat and this hat. And I'd be on top of the bar. We had a huge bar between our living room and our dinette. And I'd be covered with a sheet shrieking for my life. And he'd keep going, "Hey!" And it got to the point where there'd be people out in the street going, "Mr. Parker, could you please take off the mask?" And he would just close the door. He goes, "You never take off the mask." No, but yeah, he was the biggest kid in the neighborhood, and people would go by in the summertime and say, "That's where the monster lives," So we always enjoyed that. But if you haven't had a chance to go up to WDRCOBG.com, Ed Bruder has some great Halloween stuff up there. Ed, why don't you give us an idea of some of the stuff that's up on the OBG site right now?
Well, the main one is the link to the 1971 Halloween rebroadcast. Charlie arranged, he bought the rights to the War of the Worlds, the original Orson Welles version.
Right.
And of course, for DRC, that was the second time around because they had carried the original live back in 1938. So this was Charlie kind of reliving the memory. And so I've got some of the promos up there that he cut in his voice, thanks to David Overson's collection. And I also have a couple of articles up there, one from the Hartford Courant, I guess it was, or either that or the Times, I can't remember, the actual day after and the scare that it caused in Hartford. So they talk about whether the scare was real, and it was. A lot of newspapers around the country documented how people panicked after hearing the original War of the Worlds broadcast.
Yeah,
whole different time today.
Pardon me?
It's a whole different world today. Nobody.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of times people wonder, if anybody can, fall for that stuff anymore. But that was really, my dad was telling me, he was probably just what year was it? 38.
38, October 30th. It was the night before Halloween.
Yeah, so he was probably 13 then or so, and he said how terrifying that was. Living there in Old Wethersfield, and yeah, he really that really was a scary, scary time. But coolest thing was a couple of years ago we did a radio play about the War of the Worlds. It was called "The Night America Panicked." And in the play, we had like the studio all like, from back in the 30s, and got some great old artifacts to put up on the stage. And it was great because they were looking for an announcer for that particular event. And I said, "Oh yes, this will be fun." So to be up there and being in the 30s and, really, really enjoying, playing that part, especially after it had been at DRC all those years ago, that was really good.
But
Ron
Steve, what you're
smiling
not
over there.
mentioning, I went to see that play, and you, by the way, did a great job, and it was phenomenal. But what you're not mentioning is what you were wearing that night as the announcer. Steve was wearing tie and tails, not a tuxedo, tails. And he had his special black and white shoes on. And Steve, you were glowing that night when you'd come on stage and you were the announcer. That was really, really a very, very good show.
Well, you know what was really neat too. Thank you. One of the nights we actually did it where there was a relative there. It may have been a granddaughter. She was much older now, of someone who was actually in that particular production on that night, and that was kind of cool. And she had heard about it on TIC when we were talking it up. So that was like a double whammy to be able to get that. But oh yeah, that was something. And the suit. The interesting thing about that suit, it was midnight blue, and it was a tuxedo that my uncle wore in the 1930s when he went to Yale on scholarship. And that was my Uncle Bill. Family didn't have a lot of money, and he had the smarts, and so it's kind of neat to be able to wear that actually from that era. But yeah, that was.
So you're talking about that broadcast, and that's of course the genius of Orson Welles. But from a radio standpoint, we're radio guys. That is one of the most iconic, maybe the most iconic radio broadcast because of what it did. And we all know the story. I mean, millions of people panicked, thinking that we were really being invaded by Mars. And I remember sitting in the audience of your show, and there were announcements that this is a recreation of it wasn't real. And yet you think about all the people in New Jersey who were trying to escape. I mean, it's amazing when you think about that.
Well, it's interesting because I think, what were they up against?
Fred Allen, wasn't it?
Yeah, but also
Allen was the opposition.
No, who was the?
Was it Charlie McCarthy?
No, yes.
It was Charlie McCarthy.
The interesting thing is, one of the comments in the show was they were talking about how can we possibly be beaten by a man with a puppet on the radio? What did you think about that? I was always waiting for somebody, during the whole COVID time. What a great time to be a ventriloquist. Come on out. No problem. We could all be ventriloquists. But
I used to do close-up hand magic on my show.
Well, Jack, how different the world was back then, because you figure there was all way before internet, but this was before television. There was one or two radio stations in each market. There was only one or two newspapers in each market, but they didn't publish until every 24 hours. So the spread of news and information was so much slower then.
And I remember asking my dad about War of the Worlds because he was a freshman in college at the time, and college students are different. He said it was no big deal.
The people who were not affected by the War of the Worlds were the engineers at CBS. To them, it was just another radio program, and they were just looking for the transmitter. I had a friend who got a job as an engineer at WCBS, around 1941 or 42. And when he showed up for his first shift, these older engineers were telling him all these tales about how the Coast Guard showed up to protect them from the Martians. And the engineers were saying, "What Martians?"
Yeah, that was the thing, because when you see that power, and still the magic that can happen. I remember a few years ago. I mean, Sebastian, what did he have? At the top of Avon Mountain, there was a volcano or something.
I do remember that. That was a long, Steve. That was, my God, that was in the 70s, I think, wasn't it? Or the 80s?
No, it had to be the 80s. It was the 80s.
80s. But it's funny because even though it was April Fool's Day, people were sucked right in.
Right in.
It was also worth talking about when we're talking War of the Worlds, what WKBW in Buffalo did in '68 and then again in '71 on Halloween night. They recreated their own local version of War of the Worlds. And it was the genius of Jefferson Kay, who was their program director. I know, Bob Craig, you worked with Kay at BZ, didn't you?
I did. I've heard that broadcast. It's online. You can get it on YouTube. They have comments that that Jeff made, and as well as there was another person involved with him on that too. Yeah,
You
it was
know,
cool.
in Seattle, Washington, on Channel 5, they had a local TV program called Almost Live. And it was a comedy preamble that they ran Saturday Night Live an hour late while they did their own local comedy show. And they did a parody of the Space Needle falling. And nobody got the joke. It caused chaos all over Seattle.
I think the second scariest radio broadcast was the big turkey invasion from DRC. Thanksgiving. I think the third scariest one was my first day on the air.
Yeah, it's interesting because Ron, you mentioned how they had interruptions in the show, but to remind people that this was just a recreation, and that it was a play, and it was just it was the Mercury Theater.
Mercury Theater. Yeah.
Mercury Players, yeah, and it was interesting because Orson Welles really would. I mean, they were getting bombarded by calls. The police came to the studios. They were doing their best to keep them away because Orson Welles was a real purist, and he didn't want any of that stuff announced. And I mean, when they finally had to, it was kind of like even then he was lying about it. But you think about people's habits. How many people tuned in? Probably in the middle of the thing. I mean, that's kind of the real scary thing about it. But boy, oh boy, that sure was that had to be something to live through. And it's great, and I mean, even with the turkeys, it's theater of the mind. And when he sent out, I think I sent Jim Harrigan.
Jim Harrigan.
I just destroyed that.
Combination of two guys. I like that.
Jim
I'm sure
Harrington.
Judge Harrington. I know.
Yes, Harrigan and oh my God. Yeah, when I did send that memo out to Jim, it was really, really something because Jim, the first line in the memo was "Think Orson Welles," and he made it even the ad libs were written. I mean, Jim, you had that. I sent it to you, right, Jim Harrington?
I have no idea where it is, but yeah, I think you did.
I'll have to send it out again. That because he was so single. I mean, he was known for this, for the memos he would send out anyways. But this was page after page, single space, saying this is how it should be done, and basically telling anybody, you better not spill your guts. Forget it. He was adamant about that. But yeah, I mean, 24 hours a day, and even he had their ad libs written out, everything. But it was just and people, my God, all week long, you had the reporters from, all over the Buckley stations around the country, reporters in the newsroom, reporting, seeing these giant birds. And it was just a great one. But my sister, Dad, I think we should go down to the station and get up on top of the building and see with our camera. And they're like, oh, it was great. My father's going, don't worry about it, Kathy. Everything will be fine.
It does show the power and the responsibility, though. I mean, to be serious about it, the responsibility and power of broadcasting, and we've shattered the spectrum now, and we've got thousands of different voices that can be heard. But back in the day, when there were only a handful of outlets that were out there. It was incredibly powerful, and but it demonstrated, I suppose, the reality of storytelling in a larger community. I mean, people would do things at a play, but doing it then for a mass audience and having that kind of an impact, it was a great societal earthquake that happened because of that. And we look back at it and say, people believe what you say, and we all fight for credibility. But it's still one of the most powerful moments in broadcasting, and really, I'm glad that we're reliving some of that today. Just thinking about what it is when you're on the air and you're talking to folks, people are going to take you seriously.
Yeah, I remember when Jim English and the birds were supposed to come over, and we ran into the little office area that the jocks had, and we were looking out the window looking for the freaking birds, And your father comes by and goes, "What are you looking for?" I said, "We're looking for waiting for the birds, waiting for the birds." He says, "There ain't no birds." I said, "What do you mean there ain't no birds?" And he said, "It was all a hoax." And he says, "Oh, gee, boy, did we get duped." And felt embarrassed, but and we worked there because I remember running the board and um, all the guys, Lon Landis was great. He would build up that story, then they would play something from the West Coast, and then from the middle America, from Minneapolis, and all the way down to Hartford, and it was nothing.
It wasn't a Halloween stunt, but I remember Sebastian did a bit. I think it was April Fool joke. He did something about a volcano going off
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
You
Avon
mentioned
Mountain.
that.
Yep.
And
We
he had a lot
mentioned
of
that
people
earlier
believing that.
on Avon Mountain.
All right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was something. And but it still comes back to this, yeah, just the wonder of when it's done properly of the theater of the mind.
You remember when your dad played Ooga Chaga? He looped Ooga Chaga, Ooga Ooga Ooga.
That was my idea.
Well, then
And
they've been looking for you.
yes, and well, what was ironic, the story behind that is I was mentioning it to Charlie in his office, and because I heard the song, I says, "Imagine if we looped Ooga Chucka for a half hour, I Joey Reynolds style." And then Charlie laughed and he goes, "Can you do that?" I says, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, go ahead, do it." So I'm in the production room making this loop. Who comes walking in? Charlie, and Charlie introduces me to this guy, and he says, "Oh, Dave, I want you to meet Joey Reynolds." And I went, so we we played it on the air. It was Mike Collins' show right at 7 o'clock, and we go, "Ooga Chugga, Ooga Chugga." So
The phones melted.
Joey and I went down to the Last National Bank. I grabbed the transistor radio and went down to the Last National Banks. We had a drink, and the waitress comes over, excuse me, and so she hears the song on the radio, a little transistor radio. Surprised we even got a signal down there, and she goes, "Oh, I love that song." So she walks away, comes back about 8 minutes later, and the thing is still going. Ooga Chuck, and she's looking. That's still going on. And Reynolds, without beating it, missing a beat, looks up to her and says, "Yeah, it's the album version." So then we went back upstairs, and the cops were just showing up at that point, and we ran it for 30 minutes. It was a 30-minute deal, and I always your father running around panicking. Surprised he didn't have another heart attack, and Mike Collins sitting in the studio laughing his butt off.
Was that when they made us change to a private phone exchange? Do you remember
I don't
that?
know. I don't know. I don't remember that. Oh no, the reason they did that, Jim, I do remember, was our phones were getting jamming Hamilton standards, and that was dealing with the spacesuits. And Charlie, the genius as he was, he made a story out of it and had the newscasters telling the story that WDRC's got to, cease its contest because phones are being overswamped with calls and that. And Charlie wanted to get the contest off the air. He says that this is even before that happened, and he said to me, because I'm not going to get this thing on, get rid of this thing. And I said, oh, and
I thought they gave us a private exchange, didn't they? They gave us a
yeah. And so then when the people in Hamilton Standard called, that was his out. And then again, he made a story out of it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, there was just something so great about that, and I always I remember talking to somebody one time who was a buyer, and they had a TV station, and they wanted it was for Lux Bonnet Green, and they wanted them to be on the air in Boston or something, and how beautiful the jewelry will look. I said no. I said the radio that we're doing is much more creative. But what do you mean? Said, the pricing? I said, no, not the pricing. It's that jewelry looks so beautiful on the radio. When you think about that, think about how many people, would write copy and understand that it was that. I mean, Lee's smiling, but we always knew there was some, and there'd be some horrendous copy that would come through, right, Lee?
We got some bad copy from lots of places. Although you were the one who convinced Lux Bond to use Dick Orkin to do their commercials.
Oh, that was
and then when they got then they and then somehow I think it was you who hooked me up with them. So I had to follow Dick Orkin for a while, but I was not responsible for doing funny commercials. I was just
You're the
their
tag
voice for a
man.
few years, but yeah, that was
yeah. I mean, and again, I mean, his stuff was always terrific because it was all theater of the mind, and even
Yeah.
when there was something in one of the trade magazines, I think I've mentioned it before, but when most of the stations were pushing 30-second spots instead of 60s, and they interviewed Dick Orkin, he said, "It's the creatives, stupid." I mean, it really just had to cram it into a shorter spot, but it was dealing with that. But oh my God, to be able to be able to deal with the Radio Ranch was just a trip.
Hey,
And
Steve.
yep.
Yeah. Remember the cave on Halloween night? We were.
Oh no,
You
that
had
wasn't the
brought.
key. That was the basement of POP. That was
Well,
the
we made it sound like a cave, and
Mhm.
I was driving in because we were. I was late getting to work because I was stuck at an ESPN, and I'm hearing this, and I knew where you were, and I go, "What the hell is going on?" And you kept saying, "I don't know where Overson is," and this and that. He got lost. We're down here in the cave at the original transmitter site, and blah blah blah. Then I walked in, and you had this boom box behind you with all these different sound effects, which added realism because it was off into the distant. And then we just picked it up from there, both of us. We had a blast.
Well, being the heavy duty techie that I am, those were sound effects that my dad used to have playing in the background when people came to the house, and I just grabbed the boom box and just put it behind me and cranked the living daylights out of it and had it going on the whole time.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
there's just, and, it's when you look about, the lack of creativity now, which is unfortunate because that's the type of stuff that makes listeners want to listen to terrestrial radio. I mean, how boring is it when somebody's giving away $1,000 a day if you're the right call out of their 400 radio stations coast to coast, you get $1,000. I mean, there's no creative. I mean, one of our stations used to always do a contest at 10 after 8, and they give a question, same answer every day for weeks. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, it's just there's just I don't know. I don't know if it's consultants that don't think people like creative anymore. Or, it's a shame, but yeah, it was always a trip when you could.
Yeah, Jack Morgan, the late Jack Morgan. He and I both started Saturday morning movies, and we would promote movies. And I had this record of MGM 25 years or whatever. I had all these great sound bites from it. So we picked one of the old movies, and Jack, I says, build up that, we got this new sound system in and everything is going to be, it's great and that. And so Jack gets on the air and says, oh, I got the sound system. Let's run the Saturday morning movie. So I ran the Saturday morning movie and it made it sound like an old film, would warble and did that. And Jack's going, well, that's our sound system, and he didn't build it up far enough. Corson wants to know, calls Wayne, get down to the studio. The cart machines are screwed up or something. And Wayne goes down there and there's Jack sitting there and he goes, what's going on? He says, nothing. Everything ran fine. What are you talking about? Well, that Monday morning, I got called into Corson's office along with Wayne and Charlie. And Corson had the doc tape. And he took an excerpt off it and he plays it for us. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it. And Charlie starts laughing. And we both started laughing. Wayne had a very stern look on his face, and Corson says, "What do you think this guy's funny?" And Charlie looks at Corson and says, "That's the part of the bit. Build beautiful sound system, everything's great." And then he showed this warbly film on the air, and the idea was to make the sound system sound bad. And Corson sitting there and listens to it again and goes, "Oh yeah. Gotcha, baby. Hey, that is funny. That's good, And so we were exonerated. Get up and left the room, and then I had to deal with Wayne. Wayne called me. He says, "I need to talk to you." And I go, "Oh boy, here we go." And he read the riot act at me, and he says, "Well, I wish he had told somebody." Well, I said, "Well, told Jack to build it up, and then when it came in, he was supposed to say, "No, that's not real" or something. And but yeah, we did a lot of the Saturday morning movies. One of the best ones we did was we had this murder mystery, and we were building it up all week long because we would play clips for it. And so on the day of the show, we had the clip, and then the guy in the record go, "And the murderer is," and I had cut in Phil Stebbins, like an old, "The snack bar will be closed in 10 minutes," and then goes on that, and then you hear the end theme music of the movie. So it was right at the key point, and we threw that in, and that got a chuckle out of a lot of people. So
who was this guy Wayne you were talking about?
Wayne Mulligan, he was our chief engineer at WDRC, and then later became general manager of WDRC. So after Corson said bye-bye. So
yeah, I still wonder.
Whatever happened to Brian? Remember Brian, the engineer, and also
Flash Morgan?
Flash Morgan, yeah.
I don't know. How
about Kevin Morris?
Kevin Morris is married, happily married, second time. I was his best man, and I think it was just, I think it was only Kevin, his wife, and me at a church in Hartford. And he's always on the invite to this. So I don't know if he's listening to any of them or not. But it's so funny because he's got like Jimmy English. He's got the DRC side, insane, and then you flip him to the other side, and he'd be like a conservative businessman.
I think he worked for Microsoft. He was very successful, from what I understand.
Big time.
So, yeah,
big time. And Kevin, I had Kevin. We reconnected after many, many years, and it was so funny because he was doing something in the Gold Building in Hartford. He was down in the lobby, and he was talking to a few different businessmen, kind of like in a small circle. And I went over and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around for like those 2 seconds and became, dropped the whole corporate thing and became like the Kevin that I've known all these years. And we went out, and we had some good times together. And he was at a point where he really he had children that were grown and everything, and he just wanted to leave his wife. He wanted to get divorced, and met a great lady, but he plays it straight now. So every now and then I have to call him up, and because man, oh man, I know a couple of times with him we got so wrecked we couldn't see straight at all. But I do remember one night during the day we had talked about it'd be fun to go down to Disney World. And, just, fly down tonight. Let's go to Disney World, and we kind of laughed about it. Well, I went out that night and I came home and I fell asleep on the couch. It's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's drunk out of his mind. And he walks into the house. He goes, I got to Disney World. So I had a brand new Volvo. And of course, back then I said, all right, let's take a shot at it. And we're flying by the Colt building at about 100 miles an hour, trying to make the final flight out of Bradley. And Kevin keeps tapping me on. It's okay, Steve. It's all right. And as we approached the Bradley airport, he lost control of the car. Spins around a couple of times, just backs up, almost hits the guardrail. But the wildest thing was on the Berlin Turnpike that night, he got pulled over. Now this again was about 1978, and the cop came over, and I mean Kevin was drunk, and he goes, well, if you're up for excuses tonight, we're on our way to Disney World. And the cop came back within a few minutes and gave him his license to registration back. He said, have a good time at Disney World. Oh yeah, he said, I'm going to give you a ticket for faulty equipment. And Kevin goes, faulty equipment? It's a brand new. I'm like, shut up. And he burned rubber on and pulled away from the cop. And I'm going, oh, we're dead. So when we finally Bradley and we lost control of the car and everything. And I mean, warning lights going off.
Did you make the plane?
Yes. And it's only because they didn't have the security and the TSA and all that stuff to go through. But yeah, we jumped on at the last second. I think they even held the plane for us. And he looked at me on the plane. He goes, you really have no money? I said, no, I didn't have any money at all. And we went down for the day and flew back that day. But Kevin definitely had a crazy streak in him. And it usually wouldn't take much. That's probably why he doesn't come on these Zooms with us.
And then there was Flash Morgan, who was a character too. We had some characters on that.
Oh yeah. Flash. Remember, Flash came in one day, and I'm sitting at the board. And he's looking at me, and he goes, because always had paper bag full of canned goods that he would heat up in the cafeteria, and he eat out of the cans. And it was Wayne and I are standing there looking at him. And he goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry I'm late," and this and that. And Wayne said, "Did you look at the schedule? Huh? Huh, man?" And he was just like spaced out. And Wayne says, "You're not supposed to be working today. Today's your day off." Huh? All right, but Flash Morgan and I did Don Cannon's last show on DRC, and I taped it. Boom Boom Can. We taped it, and Brian just happened to stay late, and he worked all night with me. And even Don mentioned, he says, "I got 2 engineers here," and it was
speaking of characters, you mentioned Don Cannon, who most of you guys know. He was the voice of that guy, the radio guy, in Rocky, when Sylvester Stallone is making his raw eggs in the background of the kitchen. He has his radio on. That's Don Cannon on whatever station.
Was it Wibbage?
Wibbage, okay, yeah. And but he was a character. One day he said to me, "Hey, let's go for a ride. I want to introduce you to my parents." I was up and this is up in Hartford. He says, I thought, well, how far can it be? I didn't know where his parents lived. I thought his parents maybe lived in, I don't know, East Hartford, Yonkers. We drove to Yonkers, and he introduced me to his nice Italian parents. "Hey, how you doing?" We had something to eat. Hopped back in the car and drove back.
Yeah,
I said, I don't want to see any more of your family.
At least you got a meal out of it.
Yeah,
that's just true. That's true.
He was a real nice guy.
He was a great guy.
When he first started at the Big D, and he was only there for a few months, maybe a half a year.
I don't think it was that long, Bob. I think about more like 2 months.
Yeah, that short. It was really interesting because he roomed with me for a few weeks. I just happened to have a spare bedroom, and then his family came up. I think he had 2 kids at the time. And his wife and I walked into the apartment one day, and there they were. They were all scattered all over the apartment. I said, "What the hell is going on?" And then he got the job at Wibbage, and I had seen him a few times here in Philly at various occasions. And I asked him about the Rocky incident, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I never got a cent out of that." He said he was friends of somebody who was involved with the movie. And they asked him, they said, "Hey, Don, we're looking for a DJ in the background at Wibbage, blah, 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 because it's a Philly station." He said, "Yeah, all right." He said, "I'll do it." And he did it, never got a cent for it. And he passed away, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Did you ever hear the classic line he said about big girls don't cry?
No,
I'm not sure whether it was at DRC or Wibbage.
Yeah.
He said that big girls don't cry; they just bawl a lot. It's like,
well,
I'm sure the program manager's eyes crossed when he heard it.
Bob, I just checked it. I was wrong about Don. He worked there for 4 months, from August through December of 1970.
Yeah, it was a short period. I thought it was less than 6 months.
But he left his mark.
Yeah,
he sure did.
Well, how about the chicken with the dirty joke? He said, there's a man that has a chicken, and just before he gets to the punchline, Don would come in and cut out. It's supposed to be something bad that he was saying, and he played that. He played that for as long as he was there. The chicken man joke, and it's a guy with a chicken, and he wants it goes on and on. I have it on one of my tapes. But,
he was very, very big here in Philly. He went to Wibbage from the Big D, and then he wound up at WSNI in
OGL.
Philly.
He also went up to OGL.
That's right. That's where he really made his mark doing mornings. Yeah, he really made his mark doing mornings at OGL. Pete, were you consulting SNI at the time?
Yeah, they were my first client out of New York. I was introduced to the general manager, Mike Martyr, by Sid Mark, who was doing the Saturday night show on WYNY, the Sinatra show. And I was there twice. I was at SNI twice. There was one point at which I was flying down from New Haven once a week on Delta Express. It was a 20-minute flight, mostly. And it was pretty cool. It was, and I worked with some people who became stars or were already stars. High lit, you name them.
Yeah, they were right downstairs from us. We were on the third floor
Right.
at MGK, and they were on the first floor.
Yeah, I don't know why I never came to, introduce myself or something, but I guess there was something with the, competition, whatever. But
yeah, that was our strictly direct competitor for a while. Was that so?
Ron, do you remember a group, a doo-wop group in the late 50s called the Dreamers? Does that ring a bell at all? Because Don Cannon used to sing with them. Before he got into radio, he was in a doo-wop group.
Joe, did you know?
I know them. I know them. As a matter of fact, one of the guys who used to work for me at CBS, and he still works for RCS, Frank Camarata. His dad was one of the singers in that group. Now, here's a funny story. I said to Frank one day, I said, with these EBS tests that every radio station had to play, I mean, we all hated that damn thing. And so I said to Frank, why don't you ask your dad if his guys would sing the EBS test? And he said, yeah, I'll ask him. So sure enough, I had the Dreamers record the EBS test. And they sang, this is a test from the this is only a test, beep, And so we were running that for a while until some station in Long Island complained that we were making a mockery of the EBS test. And so it got down to push came to shove, and we had to take it off. But it was kind of
great.
It was kind of a fun thing. I mean, it was
that's classic radio right there.
Yeah, I got to find it. They made a CD. I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, and they put the EBS test on it.
There was a singing EBS test on the Cheap Radio Thrills
yes, there was.
set of
that was the Dan O'Day product, wasn't it?
And WPTR had a chanting version, not PTR, GTR out in Natick had this is a test, kind of like a syncopated thing. Yeah. And TM actually did a sung version, 2 different sung versions, which I can post if anyone ever wants to hear them. They're on my hard drives here, which one of the stations in Syracuse was the one that was the pilot for the EBS test they used. I'll put it on the servers and let you all know where it is.
Well, the problem is with New York is that you always get nabbed. We got nabbed by EMI for using the Beatles beep 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 beep, yeah,
really
going into traffic, which every damn radio station did. But because we're in New York, EMI comes in and they want money, and we're like, I'll just take it off the damn air. I mean, it's ridiculous. The amount of money that they wanted. I said, we're playing your record. I said, we play it normally and we use 10 seconds of it, for the traffic report. And I know a bunch of other stations were doing it too, but they're not going to be, they're not going to talk to those radio stations because they're not major market radio stations. So, but, the problem with us was everybody listened. So, which was a nice thing. But when you get some of that stuff, that's really
I remember at Letterman one night. I think the Eagles were going to play in New York, and Letterman's on there going, "Can we just play a little piece of that?" And Paul Schaefer's like, "No, we can't do that at all." He goes, "Maybe just a little bit. Could you play it?" Nope, no way at all. He goes, and he was like. He says, and finally he looks over, I guess, at his director, or whatever, in the audience. No, you can't play that at all. Imagine doing that on Letterman and hear that going out. But
Steve, do you remember, back in, I think it was the early 80s, when E.T., the extraterrestrial movie came out, we took a little piece of that sounder and used it as a news intro.
Hey, that's right. I remember that.
That was the Ken Trimble days.
Yeah, he came up to me. He says he didn't like the standard one with the sound we had, followed by the teletype. And he says, He brings me the album. He says, "You know that little dee 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 dee?" He says, I want to use that as our intro. And I went, first of all, it's a downer piece going out of the news, and it's. I said, I don't even know if we can use it. And he said, "No, go ahead, use it." I said, "Okay, well, if anything happens, it's your responsibility." And I had to take that little
Close Encounters, right?
yeah,
Close
Close Encounters
Encounters,
piece.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it wasn't easy because the way the kind of a little overlapping there they had, but I cut it out and made it in there, and it sucked. It really did. It just come out of an up tempo record, then you would hear that DRC, boo, 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 doing the whole now to do 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 do, and it just brought the whole newscast down. Ken was weird.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's putting it mildly. Now, what about POP? I mean, did POP do anything as far as Halloween went, or anything you guys remember? Do you do any appearances, or was there any kind of excitement over at POP at Halloween time that you can remember?
I don't remember anything specific for Halloween. We used to do I don't remember if it was April Fool's Day or if it was just there was some occasion where we would have a celebrity come in and do an interview. I think when Hal was there, I think you had Jim Croce and
That
Harry
was April
Chapin.
Fool. Yeah, that was an April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything specific that we did for Halloween, but we did a lot of things on April Fool's, but Halloween, I don't know.
Yeah, because I had I can't even remember the guy's name.
Honestly, I was talking to my wife about this last night. I don't remember Halloween being as big a deal as it is today back in those days. I remember as a kid, it was one night. That was it. You got a costume, you went trick or treating, you got your food.
It's all merchandising today. That's what it's become.
I mean,
when Steve and I were at CRN, one thing that CRN used to do that was great is we celebrate holidays.
Oh,
and we had a Halloween. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. We had a Halloween contest every year, and the person who won the Halloween contest got this proclamation. I think he got a day off from work and all sorts of stuff. So one year, we did it, and so I decided to be Bruce Jenner, and there I am as Bruce Jenner, the Olympian. Put on a wig and my USA thing, and then that was in the morning, and then in the afternoon I transitioned to Caitlyn Jenner. I put her in a
You were very lovely.
And the girls and all the women said, "We didn't realize you had such great legs." And I won the contest. Remember that, Steve?
Like, the funny thing is, that's something, if I did that, yeah, it was typical, something, wear a dress or whatever. But for Ron Pell, in the world that he was in and the position he was in at CRN, to do that, it was fantastic. It was
about a week earlier, our HR manager, Jennifer Anderson, comes to my office and she says, "Hey, I had this crazy idea. We have the Halloween contest coming up soon." I said, "Yeah, I know, Halloween, sure." She says, "I think you'd be great if you went as Bruce Jenner and Caitlyn Jenner." She said, "I don't know how we can pull it off, but I think you'd be great." I said, "You know what? That would be a lot of fun." So coincidentally, we had a woman working at the station. I forgot her name, but she was a makeup artist at ESPN. Dave, you must remember this. Dave Overson, when these guys would go on the air, they have to get all made up.
Yeah,
Well,
they had a very
years.
attractive blonde girl do that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, right. Anyway, she comes, so she says, "I'll make you up as Caitlyn Jenner." So I said, "Okay," and I went to our art director. I said, "Look, I need a USA thing to put on a T-shirt, a tank top." And I had a bunch of medals from my running days, and I got that done. And I went and I came home. I talked to my wife, and she got me a dress, and I used one of her bras and I stuffed it with newspaper. And the only thing I couldn't get is I was trying to find high heel shoes. So I went over to what's that? the place where they give away old clothes and stuff.
Goodwill.
Goodwill. I went to Goodwill, and unfortunately, I couldn't find a size 14 pair of high heel shoes. Guy says, "I don't think we have that size."
Yeah.
So I wore my red running shoes anyway. But that was a great day. That was fun.
Yeah,
That's what CRN used to do.
When we were doing one of the betting barn commercials, I did a couple of times. One time I did the betting barn queen, and that was where I started out the commercial as I was in a tuxedo and she was in a gown, and we did a little break to show some of the products. And when it came back, we flipped it around, and she and I were both under the covers, and we pulled the covers out, and now I was the queen, and she was in the tuxedo.
I remember that one.
We did so many times. We would see how far we could go. We did one of the commercials. We did a great commercial, and this was the girl that was with me out there, beautiful blonde, and she was a nurse, and stuff you could probably never pull off today. But she's wearing this short nurse's outfit, and I picked her up at the end, and I throw her in the air, and I catch her in my arms, and that was like the best take, except her dress slipped up. So they can't do that one. I said, wait a minute. And we actually put the betting barn logo right there. We got it. But the funniest one had to be, I was again betting barn queen, at the blonde hair, the whole thing, and I come out and I'm wearing this screaming neon pink women's one-piece bathing suit, and the blonde wig and everything, and I walk out, and the owner goes, "Parker, I think we might have a problem with this one." I said, "Okay, hang on." I went back and I put on a red evening gown. He goes, "Okay, that'll work."
You had both.
Yeah. It is funny because, like I say, the people you never expect, like Ron, to do something like that. And even, nobody thought about it. It was like, okay, he's Bruce Jenner, terrific. And nobody, I mean, I didn't think that he would ever at lunchtime all of a sudden come back as Caitlin. And that was absolutely great. But something, that kind of camaraderie that we had at CRN was always
it was.
We would do all kinds of get-togethers. We had the CRN University, and we would but there was just a great attitude there. And I think right now there's just none of that around. I mean,
that's testimony to Dick and Barry. Dick and Barry was all about, we're serious. We have a serious business. We're here to do a job, but we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun too. And they did that's right, Glenn. You worked at CRN back in the early days, right?
Yeah, they were down at Whaley Avenue when I started with them.
Wow, that's early.
That was actually Kevin Buckley was with them. Yeah,
before Chimney Square.
Yep.
That was when
Kevin
Barry
Buckley
first started
was
the
there.
business.
Kevin Buckley was there. Barry Berman was there. And I think there was only maybe a handful of people that worked for them at that time. Yeah, they were down at Whaley Avenue. You're up on the second floor over a delicatessen or something down on Whaley Avenue when I started with them. Yeah.
Barry, until Dick joined Barry in 1980, Barry started the company, I think in 73 or 72 or 73, 74, somewhere a couple of years out of college. He worked in Ansonia at WADS. Too bad Barry's not on the call this morning, but Barry's very entrepreneurial, started his own company, but he didn't make any money. He personally never took a paycheck. He wanted to make sure everybody else got paid, and he just could figure it out. And then when Dick joined him, the first thing Dick says is, "You're going to get paid. You're running this company. You're doing all this stuff. You're getting paid." And Dick really was the impetus to turn it around financially. And Dick's a genius. But yeah, you were there in the early days.
Just before. Yeah, I was there. I left just before Dick came on. We had just moved to Chimney Square. Well, not just. We were at Chimney Square at the time. And I was kind of in between. The Frank Clifford was doing some work there. I was doing some work there at night because I was working at ELI, doing a second shift over there. Then I'd leave ELI at midnight and go over to CRN, do a couple hours worth of work there at night. And that's pretty much, I stayed there a couple of years there. And then, not saying I left, but just I just couldn't do it all.
Did you know Bruce Furlato? Was Bruce there when you were there?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was one of the producers in the studio. Yeah.
And
Bruce
Greg
was a great
Simonson,
guy.
didn't you do some time there too, Greg?
Yeah, Greg was there.
Yeah, I did. I was there for maybe 21 years.
Yeah.
But I was living in Seattle, so I was remote. I was independent, which is the way I wanted it, and drummed up
the
quite a
NASCAR.
bit
You
of
did all that NASCAR business, didn't you?
I got the company into NASCAR, IndyCar. For a while, we were actually paid to consult IndyCar on marketing,
Yeah.
and it was fun because we really opened up a brand new category for the company. Just
Well,
when the category was hot.
Well, I think it was just so great what Ron was saying. You know, Barry was totally driven by the creative. It's very, very rare to see somebody who's, owning a company like that. I mean, Barry Berman, and all of a sudden, it wasn't about the money. It was about the creativity. It was about making something. But the combination between Barry and Dick, every time Barry would come up with an idea, Dick would have the mathematics spinning through his brain. He talked demographics, he talked dollars, and you couldn't ask. It was like Roy and Walt Disney. It was totally, okay, go work on the creative, Walt. I'll make money.
I'll figure out how to make it work financially. That's right.
It's funny when you say creative. I can remember, and I don't know how far back you guys do. We were one of the first, I'm going to say radio quote networks, whatever. We did a courtside telephone talk show when they were doing UConn basketball with Dick Elliott, and I'm going to say it might have been Schweitzer. I'm not sure who was with him at the time, but
Bill Schweitzer,
we did a telephone talk show from courtside at the basketball courts, and that was on Whaley Avenue. And I mean, to be honest with you, it sounded horrible because everything was mechanical. we had to flip switches in the studio to get the track, to send and receive. I mean, that was before days where you had two-way contact. And but that was his big thing. We're going to do a courtside radio talk program. And it's
Barry's whole being was radio. I mean, he was a radio guy, still is, loved radio, but he was entrepreneurial. And he would always think about what can we create that could help radio stations and at the same time make us some money, whether it be barter or cash, whatever it was. He came up with the Beach Watch and the Ski Watch and and all these different things, And then I remember Gary Zenobia was the guy that worked. Zenobia was the guy that worked for Barry for a long time. And when I was on the station side, Gary would always call and say, "What do you need? You need a newscast? You need a weather forecast? Tell me what you need, and we'll create it for you." And then we'll figure out the financials afterwards. But Barry was always coming up with stuff to help radio stations, and that was his real thing.
Now
He also was trying to. Oops, sorry.
I just wanted to thank. Excuse me. Just before anything happens, I wanted to thank Lee Gordon for putting Betting Barn in the background. It really means a lot to me. Touched my heart. It's always wonderful. Thank you, Lee. Okay, Glenn, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to make a quick thing here. He was also, when I left, they were also in the process of, they were going to do a talk show with Tiny Markle. They were going to have the studio. They just started putting in the studio. That's kind of when I left. And he was thinking of, hey, we're going to do a sports program and a talk program. And he wanted to get Galliat doing a sports program. And he wanted Markle to do a daily talk program. And whether that never came to fruition.
Right. When I was there, they went pretty serious with Lowell Weicker. I think it was Lowell Weicker to try to do an issue-oriented talk show. I think egos collided there.
They talked to me about doing a show with a Yankees Red Sox show with a guy named Pat Stork.
Oh yeah,
and Pat was going to be the Yankee guy, and I was going to be the Red Sox guy, and it was going to be like a point counterpoint thing. It never materialized for whatever the reason, but I remember going down there, and I also thank you for the reminder. I keep intending to let Bruce Verlato know about this. And see if he wants to join in because
Bruce would be great as far as stories go. Bruce was never so long. Great. Bruce was a great guy. Great
guy. I worked with him at POP. He was there before he went to CRN.
But so many of these guys, and I know we got to wrap things up, but so many of these guys that at CRN, what you did see, and I've said this before, the thing that really turned me on about going to work there, first of all, knowing who's steering the ship, knowing that I'd be working with Ron Pell, but also the back hallway where they had the huge written all the way down the hallway, passion, the word passion. And I said, what's that all about? They said, we have a passion for radio. And that was the thing. These were guys with Dick and Barry. You would do anything. Many cases, we killed ourselves literally, because, they'd say we deliver every market within 2 days. And I mean, whatever the challenge was, but they had the passion and they wanted all of us to be part of it. It wasn't necessarily just working for them. It was the working with us type of thing. And both of their doors were always open, which was good. I went to Barry one time and I wanted to do something, something for the homeless or something. And I went into his office and said, we have a whole CRN team, CRN Cares. I think that's what it was. Was that it, Ron? Or
there's
something like that. Helping Hands.
Yeah. Helping Hands. That's the CRN Helping Hands, right?
And I wanted to do something. I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or something, at a place like the Oakdale or something. And I said, and that's the only group of people we would have coming in were people that were couldn't make ends meet or whatever. And the only thing we would do is we'd give them a hug when they came in, and they'd see on our shirts CRN Helping Hands. No promotion, no nothing, just for whoever wanted to help. Right. And Barry looked at me and he goes, man, that's so pure. I mean, in a strange way, he liked the fact that there wasn't, an angle to it like that. He was just because he always cared a lot about people.
Giving back. That's every year we would do some promotion, helping out some organization, and everybody had, the day we closed for the day, and everybody would go to that organization and do something. Whether it was something. I remember one year we went to it was a homeless shelter in New Haven, and we just did landscaping around the building, just to make it look better because it was in disarray. I mean, Barry, and that was his way of giving back. CRN Helping Hands.
And we did the big toy drive for the Yale New Haven Hospital.
Yeah, remember that, Steve? Oh my God.
Oh God, that was amazing.
So we've got hundreds of. So I remember we'd have to store all the toys down the lower level. It was like 5 stories below Yale New Haven Hospital. We walked into this gigantic place. It was like a warehouse full of toys because all the kids at the hospital, sick kids, everybody got a toy around the holidays. And our toy drive. Boy, I forgot about that until you just mentioned it. That was great.
It was interesting because I just spoke with Jason Jakubowski, who's the CEO and president of Connecticut Food Share. It used to be Food Share and Connecticut Food Bank, and they merged it all together to create the Connecticut.
And your father started that.
Right. And it was in March of 1975 when they went out to West Farms and stayed there. And I was just looking at the proclamation because I have a cover of it.
The Feed a Friend Foodathon.
Yep. It was this is the proclamation. Whereas over 8,000 people have received emergency supplies since the inception of this program. But it was like back in 1975 over there at West Farms. And of course, Brad Davis came in and wanted to get so involved in it. And I think they raised.
That was February of 75.
Didn't we do the first one in 1971?
No, it's 1975 at West Farms Mall.
Yeah.
And
February.
the proclamation said March. It may have been
when did he start the food bank?
That was it.
But didn't he start it? He started it when I was there.
Yeah, and Dave was in his office when they came up with the term food bank. Nobody else was doing a food bank.
Yeah, we were making a joke of it. And he said, "Oh, I want to deposit, cans of beans or whatever." And Fred Tizzoli was there, and it was all because of the government had gone on strike, almost like now, and people weren't getting their welfare checks, and so your father came up with this idea, and we were joking about it. Then he's sitting there in a chair giving that thought, how that look he has, and he goes, "That's a good idea." He says, "Should create a bank, a food bank," and the rest is history. So
and I tell you, the interesting thing is, when I was talking to Jason Jakubowski, I said, here we are, 360,000 people in Connecticut that are not going to be getting SNAP benefits as of tomorrow.
Terrible.
And I said, this is the type of thing where, you'd walk in my dad's office, he'd go, let's do it.
Oh.
And he said, and Jason said, he says, yeah, because he always talks about my dad. He goes, yeah, the days of being able to just walk into Charlie Parker's office and say, let's do something like that. Because right now, I mean, the people are crying, and it's happening everywhere with these SNAP benefits being gone. And it's just awful because there's nobody. I mean, back in the old days of YZ, I venture to say, Pete, that you guys would probably, like you did everything with St. Jude's, you guys would probably get out in front of something like this and be doing something to help this whole shortage on food, right?
Well, that was the connection. You had to have a connection to the community, and that was it. I don't know whether it was following in your dad's footsteps or not, but it was, it was certainly an integral part of the radio station.
Oh, that's why I always went down to when you guys would be doing the St. Jude's drive, because my dad and was so involved with DRC with Danny Thomas in the very beginning, which was really, making a difference. He was always about, making a difference in the community. And at least, back then he didn't have somebody cracking the whip on him going, well, how are we going to make money with this? It was never. Because in the long run, you do make money on all of this just because of the fact you do care about the community. You just don't have to have, you don't have to have, somebody sponsoring every little thing that's on the air. It's about helping out the community. But it was that was just amazing. And something, later on in his life, when he was having some health problems and everything else, and he would see a lot of people that were, financially successful and everything. And he go, yeah. And he would actually say, I don't know. And he would kind of be looking at his life going, yeah, but what did I do? And I'd be going, Dad, millions of people are eating food because of what you did. And it wasn't just a matter of,
that's right.
I said, your name's not tied to it or anything else, but you know what it's all about. And that was the thing. But, that was so hopefully, thoughts and prayers are with all those people. Before we go, Chuck Martin, how's it going in California?
Well, it's doing pretty good, but you guys, it's Halloween, and I would like you to send a gift card to my P.O. box. And I want Reese's peanut butter cups. Listen, none of this hard candy and stuff. I want Almond Joy, Hershey's with almonds. None of this hard candy crap. I want the good stuff. Or tricks are coming your way.
No protein bars. You want that good old-fashioned candy.
We'll send you a bunch of M&Ms.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
You better get me that email me that P.O. box. We'll send some stuff out to you.
I knew there was a reason why I came to Connecticut today. I knew it.
Well, we certainly thank you for that. All right, everybody, I got to get out of here. I mean, I don't have to get out of here. Dave's got to finish up and be able to edit this. And as I always say, especially Chuck, hang around, please. We're going to be backstage here for anyone who can stay. And we know in many cases you have to go, and that's understandable. But I do want to thank everybody that's been on the show today. Pete Salant, Chuck Kraus, Ron Pell, John Landry, Dave Overson, Joe McCoy, Bob Craig, Bill Rock, Ed Bruder, Glenn Edwards, Greg Simonson, Bob Marks, Lee Gordon, Clark Smith, Pat Sheehan, Jim Harrington, Judge Harrigan, Harrington and Harrigan, that's how it happened. Bob Craig, Tracy Carmen, Pat Sheehan, Chuck Martin, and I'm sure I may have missed somebody. I may have said somebody's name twice, whatever, nobody ever said that I was a professional in anything. But it certainly means a lot that you guys are here, and it's always great things to talk about, and it's just always great to hang out with you guys. And we're going to try to do it again next Friday morning, which I guess will be, what is that, the 7th or 6th?
7th.
Huh?
7th.
7th. Okay, I'll take it. I don't. Well, I never know. I got to do these 31 days and all that kind of stuff, and it gets me crazy. But I really do mean it. And please, as we always say, if you need any help, if you know anyone who ever needs any help, please do what you can and try to help out our friends at the Broadcasters Foundation of America. And because that's what really in the long run, what it comes down to is trying to help out anybody when you can. All right. And there's tough times for all the people, for everybody. I know, geez, I could use a couple of bucks. We can all use a couple of bucks. But and if you do well and you pick up a couple of extra bucks there, send it to them. If you need help, they'll come back to you. Broadcasters Foundation of America. Check out their website and all the good stuff. Have a happy Halloween, everybody. And we will catch you next time on Radio Friends. Bye, everybody.
Your friends, Radio Friends again. Radio Friends again.